One. All right, we are rolling. All right, welcome back to a new season of the Vats Facts podcast with Peltz the Prodigy. I am Peltz the Prodigy, or as many folks know me as Jonah Pelter. We have a really, really special guest, a man of great character, a man who resembles hard work and tenacity, passion. Me and this man have one thing in common, and that's that we're from the same hometown, went to the same high school, a couple years apart, albeit. Yeah, just a couple. And it's truly an honor to have him on here today. Hall of Fame coach for the Philadelphia Eagles, Kansas City Chiefs, and St. Louis Rams, Dick Vermeil. Coach, good to see you.
Always nice to visit with a Pelter.
I appreciate you saying that. Um, so we, so Coach, obviously I'm a huge football fan, but the big reason why I wanted to have you on is your background. There's just not many folks from our hometown that have made it to the level you've made it. And the other guy who's made it to the level you've made it at is you're related to him. And I just want to know, and if you can talk slightly louder into your device, I would love to know, just to start off, what was it like growing up in Calistoga when you did? And how did your household prepare you to excel in team sports?
Well, Jonah, I grew up in Calistoga, graduated from high school in 1954, so it's a long time ago. But at that time, there were only 1,800 people in town. There were only 130 kids in the school, 29 in my graduating class. So you knew everybody, and everybody was your friend. We had absolutely no enemies or no one we didn't care for in Calistoga at that time. I don't know what it's like today with over 5,000 people in town and over 500 kids in the high school, but it was a very, very positive environment. We had very few restrictions, as kids. Everybody's parent was a parent of you or had the authority to correct you when they saw you doing something wrong or out of line. And so we always had very positive reinforcement and very positive guidance. So there were no bad examples in town. No bad examples as teenagers, no bad examples as parents that I can remember. So I was very fortunate, very, very fortunate. So much different today, hell, most of us guys as kids in school with our old cars had 22 rifles in the back seat. Okay. We'd go shooting at the city dump at lunchtime. Okay. Or after football practice or after baseball practice. We were allowed to grow up as kids and make our own little minor mistakes and be corrected by anybody's parents. And I'm repeating myself when I say this, very, very positive environment.
Well, excellent. Yeah, that is a trip, having 22 rifles, and going shooting at lunch.
At
That's,
12 years old, we'd ride through town with our rifles on our handlebars and head up into the mountains for spend. It didn't come home until dark. Okay,
oh my
but can you
gosh.
imagine doing that today?
And I think my mom would have some words for me if I did that when I was in high school.
Yeah, it
Um,
all changed. Yeah,
well, Coach, thank you. And so you graduated from CHS in 1954. Is
right.
that correct?
That's right.
Um, in your Hall of Fame speech just a couple years ago for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, you credited several people, but a specific Calistogan you credited was your head coach Bill Wood, with inspiring you to get into coaching. Can you tell myself and our audience more about Coach Wood and his impact on you at CHS and your teammates?
Well, Bill Wood had just graduated from College of Pacific playing football there, and this was really, I think, his first football coaching job as a head coach. And uh, I hadn't had that kind of coaching early. We had Mr. Reynolds as our coach our junior year, and he was a good football coach, but I wasn't just learning how to play the game. Then my junior year, we had a history teacher that coached us that wasn't really an experienced football guy. And then Bill Wood shows up, and everything he did was so dynamic and difference and change, and from discipline, the structure of your offense to uh, your ability to play. And we had a very fine football team and we only lost one game that year. In the middle of the season that year, he came up to me. Bill Wood said, young man, if you wanted to, you could play college football. But in looking what you've been doing, not being in college prep and not anticipating going to college, you'd have to go to junior college before you moved on. And I said, that's not a problem. So I decided to go to junior college because of his motivation and his recognition in my ability to maybe in the future be able to play college football. And I love playing the game. And no one had told me that before. I was going to stay home probably and grow into my dad's garage and help him maybe someday build a new building. It was originally in my great grandfather's barn, and it always remained a barn. But I was a pretty good mechanic by the time I got out of high school because of that exposure, but no real thought of going on into college. So that was, I think, the main initial motivating force. I knew my dad always loved football, and he always talked about football and how a person could live his life correctly if he just followed the principles he learned in playing high school football. So
Right.
I just followed that wet path and went on into Napa Junior College and played there a couple of years, and then transferred to San Jose State as a walk-on.
Excellent. And it is so. I obviously didn't haven't made it as far as you have, but I ran track in college. And I was more of a football guy. But I had a track coach my last 2 years. We were on our way to a track meet in Willits, and similar thing. He said, "Hey, you should think about doing some events in college." And
Yeah.
it's so paramount, I think, to a young man when you have a male figure who you respect outside of your father, of course, who's saying, "Hey, I think there's something here for you."
Yeah, no
Um,
question. Yeah, positive reinforcement early is it helps you form a belief in yourself. It becomes part of what you start thinking about. Someone has to initiate that if it doesn't automatically occur within your own motivation. Yeah.
Absolutely. And coach, did you play any other sports in high school?
Yeah, basketball, football, track, and baseball. In those days, everyone had to compete in everything. We'd play a baseball game and run a track meet the same week. The track meet couldn't be held on the same day you were playing baseball. We just didn't have enough kids. So that's what we all did, and it helped us. It really enjoyed us. It really enhanced our maturing experience. Yeah.
And what was it about? Because I feel like you went to high school in the 50s, at least from somebody who didn't grow up in the 50s. It seems like football didn't emerge as America's game, maybe on a broader scale till later. What was it about football early on that, made you fall in love with the game? Because, baseball was so popular, obviously, track and field was a huge thing. What was it that made you pull towards football aside from your relationship with Coach Wood?
Well, I think hearing my dad talk about his experiences playing high school football, and then my
Wow.
dad and other people in Calistoga in the early 30s, they had a Calistoga town team that would practice once or twice a week and go off on the weekends and play other cities. I
Oh,
have
wow.
pictures of that team. Hey, the president of the bank was on the team. My father-in-law, Harry Drake, was on the team. There were a lot of the names, old Calistoga names, that are still around that valley that were all on this football team that went around.
Interesting.
So we just grew up hearing about football and its positive reinforcement within your own personal development. So I think
Wow.
that was really key to me.
I
And
would love.
I played it, and it was easy to be a good player when there's only 25 kids on the team, and you're playing other schools of equal size, and you're all of a sudden experiencing success and making the all conference team, and then someone like Bill Wood says, you could play college football if you really wanted to, but you're going to have to make up what you haven't done academically in high school. And if I have said this to many times, if I made any one mistake in my early development was not taking education seriously. But I caught up in junior college and went on. I graduated with department honors out of San Jose State, got my master's, general secondary, and all that. But I really think the deep fundamentals taken for granted in high school hurt me. And you always pay the price, even when you're 89 years old. If I had it to do over again, I would have taken that part of my growth far more seriously.
Well, I think Coach, that speaks a lot to just your character and your work ethic as a person, even at 89 years old, with all you've accomplished in 2 degrees, you're you're still saying, hey, I could have done this better, and what an
Would have been
excellent.
easier to start. It would have been easier in junior college. It would have been easier in college. Easier working on a master's in general with secondary at the same time. Myself and a teammate were the first two guys to ever get their general secondary and their master's degree within the same year. So we
Oh wow.
worked at it, you know. And the great thing that I learned how to work. I grew up working, so
Right.
work was never a form of punishment for me. You know.
Right. And that is one thing, as a fan of yours, that's something I've always taken away from you, is in that, it was lamented in your A Football Life documentary, which was so brilliantly done by NFL Network a while back. You said that hard work is not a punishment, and you were known for that at your Eagles camps when you first got into NFL and throughout your coaching career. You spoke on it. Grew up working, hardworking, Italian American family. Your dad, of course, Louis Vermeil, had a very famous garage in Calistoga. Founded the racetrack that is now, of course, thankfully back in service. What can you tell us about, your parents, Louis and Alice Vermeil? May their memories be a blessing, and the work ethic they imparted on you in the household.
Well, I think one of the greatest things you could be is a good example. Far more important than an opinion or an approach, because you forget opinions, you forget advice, but you don't forget good examples. And my mom and dad were just everyday, common, hardworking people. There was always a stranger or another kid sitting at our dinner table. There might be someone who had a car in the garage, not finished by 5 or 6 o'clock at night, and he would come in and sit down and have dinner with our folks. And then my dad would go out in the garage and finish fixing the car, and he would drive home. Okay, those kind of examples. People that worked for my dad full time ate dinner with us many times, maybe 5 nights a week, even. It was a very warm, cultivating experience. My dad was tough on me, especially the older son. Nothing was quite done well enough or good enough, and you always strive to do it better the next time. And he never wasted any time in telling you. You always knew where you stood, and you used to, as a younger person, resent it. But as you mature, you then appreciate the values it added to your own profile and your own personality and your own way of doing things. So the toughness made me tough, because coaching football at all levels tough. Okay, there's just a lot of highs, there's a lot of lows, and if you don't handle the lows properly, you don't succeed. And so the environment I grew up in helped me in more than just one way. So I've never lost. I've never stopped thinking about the values that it transmitted to me that I didn't think about at that time. Just as you grow up and start realizing, wow, the ass chewing I got out for doing that wrong, or not doing that right, or not doing what I said I was going to do, or telling a little fib. The worst thing you can do in my home is tell a fib, you know. So, and it may be a lie, but I narrowed it down to just a little fib. But that was the worst thing you could do as a person. Now, honesty was the most important thing in our family in terms of communication and how you lived your life.
Strong values, something that I certainly think our society can use more of nowadays. Um, and I appreciate you sharing that. Coach, you had mentioned Napa Valley College. You played there. You also coached there for a year. Um, that's interesting to me because growing up, I went to Santa Rosa Junior College, but growing up here, graduating high school in 2015, we never heard of Napa Valley College having a
Yeah.
college football team. What was your experience like? You had been coaching kind of all around the Bay Area a couple years before coming back to coach in the Valley. What was it like for you having a homecoming of sorts, coming back to Napa Valley and coaching at Napa Valley College and coaching a couple Calistogans as well?
Well, I had been an assistant coach in high school 1 year when I got out of school in 1959. Then I became the head coach at Hillsdale High School for 3 years and had success there. Really had great relationships with my players and that stuff. And I went to College of San Mateo as an assistant coach to grow and just accept more responsibility as a football coach, because I started thinking about I didn't like so much teaching in the classroom or the PE classes. What I really liked was coaching football. So I went to college in San Mateo. Then Napa College came and offered me the head coaching job at Napa JC. So I took it. I went up there one year, and fortunately we won 7 and lost 2. Lost the championship game in Santa Rosa, and we filled the stadium first time ever. And it was really fun. And all of a sudden, I get a phone call from Stanford University wanting to know if I want to be the head freshman coach at Stanford University. How do you turn that down? And unfortunately for me, Carol and I got married when I left Napa JC to go to San Jose State. We were both 19 years old, okay? And here we are going on our 70th wedding anniversary this year. So it
Beautiful.
was all a positive thing. And then every time we had an opportunity to move to an opportunity to coach more football and less teaching, I took it. Stanford University was the first time I had full-time coaching responsibility to coach the freshman team and then recruit Southern California. And I stayed there 4 years. I advanced to the secondary coach my second year, and then quarterback offensive coach my third and fourth year at Stanford before I left to go to the St. Louis Rams as first special teams coach. So it was a constant move, constant learning, and always very fortunate to be surrounded by outstanding people. At Stanford, John Ralston, my God, he won 2 Rose Bowls there. Bill Walsh was on the staff. We became personal friends. He was a graduate assistant at San Jose State when I walked on there. We became very close friends. And, Jim Mora was there, another NFL head football coach later on who worked for me when I became the head coach at UCLA. So every time I got an opportunity to advance with the opportunity to coach more than just football, I took it. Fortunately, I was married to a little gal that was 100% behind my desire to be a head football coach. I never thought about being a head coach in the NFL. It just happened in the evolution of my career. But fortunately for me, it worked out well. But it wasn't easy. And I always thought I never wanted to put myself in a position of coaching where I had to outsmart somebody. No one has ever accused me of being bright, okay? But I knew how to work. And I knew going to pro football, you aren't going to show up and outsmart Tom Landry, all those great coaches there, the Parcells of the world, and those guys, Bud Grants of the world, and my God, all the great coaches that are already established. But I thought as a young guy, I could go there and maybe outwork them, out motivate them. I'd do these kind of things. And fortunately, I experienced a degree of success that ended up, like you said, put me in the NFL Hall of Fame. But I'm very, very, very grateful to all the kids, all the assistant coaches, everything that worked with me to put me there. It wasn't a Vermeil product. It was a combination of everybody I surrounded myself with product. And that's why I'm so grateful today to have the opportunity, hey, to discuss my career with you, which I've done many times on national television, all this kind of thing, never thinking it would happen when I left Calistoga High School.
Just a kid from Calistoga.
Yeah, great. Yeah, buying wine from your dad later on. Okay.
Oh, God bless you. Absolutely. No, and thank you for that. We'll get into that later, but thank you for all your support over the years. Means a lot. But it's so interesting in your answer there and describing your coaching journey. You see the family connection. You see that upbringing in your parents' household. And when you say it's not a Vermeil thing, it's a we thing, bringing everybody with you. And lots of different stops along the way. Especially until you get to UCLA. UCLA, you're there a couple years, and then of course move on to the Eagles. What was it like? Obviously, you have a great wife. Carol was with you 100%, but eventually you guys start having children. What was it like all those years? I mean, you're moving around quite a bit. What kept you grounded during that time, professionally, but then also, if I
Well,
may, personally, because that's a lot on a young family.
that's a good question, John. That's a good question. What number one kept me grounded was the example I grew up in, just watching my mom and dad. In the old days, the women were there to support their husbands, not their careers. And
Right.
fortunately for me, Carol was raised in the same era, and she was my lead support. She was my lean in the good times and the bad times, the tough times, and many times the family, as we family grew is when they voted to say, we're not going to go. We don't want to move again. I don't blame them. We moved anyway because someone has to make the serious decisions in your career. And sometimes when you combine too many opinions, it's a negative. You just can't make everybody happy. But good decisions eventually make everybody happy. And I just sat around a Thanksgiving table with 18 people, my 3 children, their spouses, 5 of our 11 grandkids, 2 of our 5 great grandkids. And if we hadn't made the decisions we made, and it was all not always a collective positive agreement, let's do it. If I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be sharing the same experiences that I shared Thanksgiving Day. It'd be a completely different environment. Nobody wanted to leave California and come to Philadelphia, I promise you, okay? But in those days, when you're making $30,000 a year coaching a major UCLA football team and you're offered $50,000 a year your starting year as an NFL coach, that's a lot of money to somebody like me. Especially raised like I was raised. A lot of money in our family, a lot of work, a lot of love, a lot of honesty, a lot of morality, those kinds of things. But that helps you grow as well. John Ralston once told me this, and he was so true when I was his freshman coach. The only way to become a good head coach is become one. You learn on the job, because every job there's more responsibility, more things, more details involved, and you learn. If you don't learn, you fail. You don't move on. You don't move up. And so I'm very grateful to the John Ralstons, the Tommy Protos, the George Allens, the Chuck Knoxes, the Bill Walshes, the Jim Moores, that all helped me grow as a football coach.
You've mentioned when I was, prepping for our interview, Coach, I watched obviously several interviews you did. I'm a big fan of Rich Eisen. It's so cool. It's so cool that you've done so many interviews with Rich Eisen. He seems like very, very
Great
nice
guy. Yeah,
gentleman.
he was a good Vermeil wine drinker too, so that's good.
Oh, good to know. Good to know. um, you mentioned, obviously, folks know Bill Walsh's, Coach Allen's, but, I think at least my generation, I'm 29. A lot of us know Coach Mora's playoffs, the funny soundbite,
Oh yeah, yeah.
which is legendary. But you've mentioned him so much with those great names. What is something about Coach Mora that, somebody maybe from my generation doesn't realize, and what to him, what is something that maybe football fans don't know about, like why he is such a great coach?
Well, first off, he had been a Marine,
Hmm.
okay,
Hmm.
and he had gotten out of college, became a coach, came to Stanford to be an assistant coach there. Then went on from there to Colorado as a defensive coordinator. Then when I became the head coach at UCLA, he came with me as my linebacker coach. He left there after a year and became defensive coordinator at the University of Washington, very successful. But to me, he just had a great profile as a leader, strong-minded, strong leader, demanding, tough, but fair, caring. I think he's one of the most underrated head football coaches in the NFL at any time. He turned the New Orleans Saints around unbelievably well. I mean, they couldn't beat anybody for years. They kept firing coach, and he turned around and made a playoff team out of them and did a great job. Went on to Indianapolis. It didn't work well in Indianapolis for many different reasons, but he was there and he brought Peyton Manning there. Okay, remember?
Yeah.
So he knew what he was doing, and I just always had great admiration and respect for him. Then to have him work with me at UCLA and just watch him recruit, watch him work with the staff, watch him coach players, and one of the most impressive guys I ever worked with, for me anyway.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Coach. I want to kind of bring it back a little bit. I'm not sure if you followed the headlines. Our local CSU here in Sonoma County, Sonoma State University, unfortunately, last year they cut their entire athletic program, which was, very sad to see. As a former, college athlete myself, it's not fun to see that. Your right hand man, one of your right hand man, throughout your coaching career was Carl Peterson.
Right.
He coached at SSU in the late '60s. What do you remember about, do you remember much about those Sonoma State teams he was involved with? Can you share anything about that time?
No, just remember I met Carl when I took the head coaching job at UCLA, and he was on the UCLA staff. They had a 10-man staff, and I kept 7 of the assistants on the staff to work for me.
Mm,
Carl was one of them. When I went to work with him, then I recognized first he had his PhD, very bright
mm,
guy, and I kept adding responsibilities to him off the field because you could just see he was a bright guy and a good administrator, and he could handle all the details outside of X's and O's that would free me up to be more of a head football coach and not
mm,
also just an administrator of football.
right.
And so I brought him with me to the Philadelphia Eagles. At first, he was my administrative assistant and then tight end coach. And then I gradually moved him off the field to do more administrative things because I also had control of all football, the draft, and all anything to do with the X's and O's of the game. And I took him off the field and actually made him assistant general manager, where he started
Mm,
working, running the draft, running personnel, helping Jimmy Murray, our general manager, with the contract signing and all those kind of things, and overseeing the overall administrative side of my responsibilities, which freed me up to continue at Philadelphia to be my own offensive coordinator, to coach my own quarterbacks, to call my own plays, and do all those things. So it's too big a job if you try to combine everything and still be the X and O guy. And I really love the X and O. And you know, he was very instrumental in our success in Philadelphia. And he went on and did a great job with the USFL team in Philadelphia. Won the championship in that league 2 out of the 3 years it existed. Went on, became the president, general manager, both responsible as the Kansas City Chiefs, 20 years. And he's the reason I went back into coaching after I left the Rams because he asked me to come with him again, and I could trust him. I knew him, had great love and respect for him. You know, he's like part of my family. Okay, so
mm.
that's Carl Peters. You know, and now he's retired and traveling the world and earned every right to do so.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Coach, you've talked a lot. You mentioned the Rams, and for a while we didn't see much relocation in pro football. And then I think it's been about 10 years now, we saw kind of a shakeup with the Rams coming back to LA, Chargers moving to LA, which is still a head scratcher for me. And then my favorite team, the Raiders, moving down to Vegas. People now look at the Rams, and I think some might forget the St. Louis era. Not you, of course. You were a head coach of the St. Louis Rams when they won the Super Bowl. You know, I think sometimes when a team moves, I'm a fan of the A's and Raiders, right? These teams move, the cities get, crapped on, part of my language,
Yeah.
in the media, right? For better or worse. Some may be true, some not. The stadium gets crapped on the fans. Fans should never get the blame, as far as I'm concerned. What are some misconceptions about, maybe St. Louis as a football town and the St. Louis Rams fan base that, some folks maybe might be forgetting about from that you can reflect on from your time there?
Well, I think all cities with professional teams that have successful professional teams become identified. St. Louis was always considered a baseball city and not a real football city. But any
Right.
city becomes what it wants to be when that team is successful. All of a sudden, you have two fan bases. St. Louis Cardinals, a great, consistently well run organization, world class. Okay. The
Yeah.
Rams, not, they were losing. They were the losingest team in the 90s when we took them over in 97. And 3 years later, they won the Super Bowl because of the contribution of so many people, way beyond just Dick Vermeil. But the city became a great football town. You couldn't get a seat in the stadium. Every marketing tool that was used to sell skyboxes, whatever it was, signage, everything was sold out, you know. So it became a great football town as well. And I can understand the business side of it. You know, the minute St. Louis Rams went back and became the Los Angeles Rams again, the value of that franchise doubled. And we're talking about millions of dollars, okay? And people criticize Stan Kroenke, which I'm disappointed had to move. But I'm not surprised. Any major corporation that could double the value of their corporation and for everybody involved would probably do the same thing. Okay. They just, sometimes you can't help but do it. That's what you do in the business side of any business. I think it really hurts St. Louis. When you go back there, it isn't the same on that stadium anymore. And everybody I talk to when I go back there, they really miss the Ram days. They really, really miss it because Mike Martz took my job and went on and did a beautiful job for a few years there with them. Uh, the USFL Football League, Extra League, is successful in there. They draw more like 28,000 people in that stadium, more than anybody else does.
Right.
It's a great city, but without the St. Louis Rams, the city isn't what it was or what it became in that era. And they really miss it. I went back there a year ago, January. No, I guess it was this year in January for the anniversary.
Mm.
And they put a banquet. The banquet was packed in the Missouri Sports Complex there. Beautiful old building, similar to the Union League in Philadelphia. And it was just a beautiful banquet, just absolutely beautiful. And everybody there was so sincere and appreciative of what we did when we were there, and missed so much not having their St. Louis Ram team there or a professional football team. But that's how, that's the business side of the sport.
You and I first met, Coach. You, as you mentioned, you used to buy wine from my parents. Um,
That's it.
and yes, and I was a young man getting in the pro football. Of course, unfortunately, I like your rival team, so I'm sorry about that.
It's all right.
But
Nothing wrong with that.
but you
Sin.
really, huh?
It's not a sin, that's for
Right,
sure.
right. But I remember, you got myself and my father tickets to go to the Raiders Chiefs game back when you were coaching the Chiefs, and man, you had some great teams on the Chiefs. Tony Gonzalez, Priest
Yeah.
Holmes,
Trent,
uh,
Trent Green, you
uh,
bet. Willie Rofe, Will Shields, Hall of Fame players. Yeah, yeah,
really
very
good
good.
teams.
Yeah, very
You
fortunate.
know,
Had
um,
two real good teams. The
yeah,
2023 team, 2003 team was a very fine team. The 2005 team won 11 games, didn't get in the playoffs. Okay, but anyway, uh, I was never satisfied with what we got done there because Lamar Hunt was such a wonderful owner, just a
mm,
great human being, one of the finest human beings I've ever met in my lifetime. And not to be able, don't do a good enough job to hand him the Lamar Hunt Trophy, still bugs me a little bit.
mm,
A job not well done.
right. Well, and that's that's the football coach in you, the competitor, and you know, it's funny, now growing up, seeing the Chiefs now, it's
Boy,
I
yeah,
does that give you a little bit of I don't know if I want to say vindication, but I mean, no, reflecting on what you just said of, hey, we had some great teams, we weren't able to quite get to the point we wanted to, but now you're seeing Lamar Hunt's family on those stages. How
yes.
does that make you feel as a former employee?
Very grateful. Very grateful. First off, Andy Reid's a good friend. I have tremendous respect for him. I had tremendous respect for him when he was in Philadelphia. And I knew when he took over, backed by the Hunt family, they would be successful. I
Mm,
knew they would be. I would have bet anything they would be successful. Would I have bet they'd be in the championship game consistently and win some Super Bowls? I would say they went beyond my expectations. I knew they would win too, maybe, but not be as consistently. It's so hard to do that kind of consistent basis. But he's done it. This year they're struggling. I still believe they'll make the playoffs.
oh, I agree. I agree. I think as long as number 15's under center and of course, Big Red as well as Travis Kelce affectionately calls him, they're going to be a factor. I mean, they're
Yeah.
just
But
they're
in my
just
mind, I 100%
unbelievable.
agree. Yes.
Um, but I wanted to ask, we met in Oakland, and I am still a Raider fan, still an A's fan. Now, you're originally from Northern California. In the last couple of years, we've seen the Raiders leave, the A's leave, Warriors, albeit just across the bay to San Francisco, but they left. So there's no more major pro sports teams. I mean, there's a couple, there's a soccer team, there's, a couple other teams, WNBA team splits time, but there's no more major pro sports teams in Oakland. As a native Californian, do you have any thoughts on that? And then also, can you share any stories of coaching at the old Oakland Coliseum or across the bay at Candlestick Park?
Well, first off, I saw the Raiders play when they played on a junior college football, Frank Ewell Field, okay? When the very first Raider teams period, because I had friends playing on the team. Tony,
Wow.
yeah. Geez, I can't think of their names right now, but it was just, just like a junior college team, but that was the Oakland Raiders.
Yeah.
And, Al Davis did an unbelievable job. Al Davis set the standards for a lot of us in the league in terms of ownership, general managership, coaching, and everything else. And it ended up not being at the end of his career what he had developed, but it's so hard to keep it going. It's so hard to keep it going. But for the stadiums, the Oakland Stadium was an embarrassment. Was an embarrassment to the National Football League. The locker rooms were terrible. The sewage would back up. The showers would plug up. You'd be walking in. Oh my God! Candlestick was not a first class NFL stadium anymore. They had to be upgraded. They had to be to maintain the standards of the National Football League. So I'm disappointed Oakland allowed them to leave. I think they are too. I don't know. I don't know all the legal reasons. I don't know all the financial reasons, but I do know this: if the Raiders were still in Oakland, the city of Oakland would be in better condition than they are right now. That's what I believe. Now, I'm just an independent thinker, not real knowledgeable on that side of the game. But when the city loses its teams, it's never what they were. And I don't think the cities are always at fault. Sometimes people get too greedy in the value of something, and it makes it almost impossible. But there have been other teams in positions to leave that didn't leave, and are very grateful that they didn't leave. And I'd like to believe that both in San Diego and in Oakland, that there could have been a way to solve the issue to keep those teams. Number one in San Diego, number two in Oakland. That's me, and I don't
Yeah.
have all the answers.
Yeah, of course. And you know, is a native Calistogan coach, at least for me, when I think Dick Vermeil, next person I think about, of course, we think about your lovely wife, Carol, who I've had the pleasure of meeting, but in the sports realm, who we think of is Louis Giamona, your nephew, who you had the pleasure of coaching for a couple years on the Eagles.
Yeah.
What can you tell folks about Louis as a player and as a person too, if you'd like? And what was that experience for you coaching a relative of yours and the fellow Calistogan at in the pro level?
Well, Louis was a gifted athlete. I mean, truly gifted athlete. And fortunately for me, I think it was 1979, I lost all three of my running backs in one game. I'm at the end of a game thinking of playing a defensive safety at running back because I knew he could jump in and fill in. Okay.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
and so I knew Louis had played at the with the Jets. We actually coached against him in training camps when he was there, and I knew he was a fine college football player. He led the nation in all-purpose yards his senior year, and he was a sixth-round draft point. And he was out there. It's not like today where there's free agency and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't have any draft choices anyway. My first 3 years with the Eagles, so he was available. I called him up. He was rehabbing a knee operation or a knee issue anyway. And would you like to finish out a season helping me as a running back? Because I need some help. And we brought him in. He passed the physical because I told the doctors to pass him. Okay. And he passed the physical. Right away, he made a contribution on the special teams and as a backup running back. We beat the Dallas Cowboys one day with him as a starting running back because Wilbert Montgomery couldn't start. And he played well.
Wow.
He was probably the leading player on our special teams, and he played there 4 years. But he's just a gifted athlete, and he was very, very a big contributor to our success and morale. He was a little bit of a character. Okay, there was a little profile part of him that positively or negatively influenced guys around him, depending on what he was doing. but he made a very positive contribution to our football team. And I never kept him on the team because he was my nephew, because he performed well, especially on special teams. And one of the toughest kids pound for pound I ever coached. I didn't realize how tough he was. I knew he was a gifted athlete because he could pick up a golf club and play. He could go in the basketball court and play. He could go in the baseball game and play. It's just what he was. And in his bloodline, it was the DiMaggio family. His grandmother was a part of the DiMaggio family of San Francisco. So there
Oh,
was some
wow.
good beside Vermeil's in there, and his dad, Gimona's, okay? So it was a good experience. It was a good experience, and I don't think it ever caused me a problem because
Yeah.
the players gained the players elected him as captains, okay, as a special teams captain, not me.
Yeah.
I didn't appoint him. So anyway, it was a good experience, and he's living now full time in Key West, and I see him once a year when we go down there and spend some time. Yeah.
I'd love to chat with him at some point, as well. And
He's a
I
little bit
appreciate.
crazy. He's a little bit crazy. He always was a little bit wired. My wife always said, I used to babysit him, and he was wired when he was a child. Just some guys have that in there. They're always going to be attacking and aggressive within their own personality and displaying their skills.
Makes him a good player on that makes sense of why he was a special teams captain. You got to be a little crazy to be really
Yeah.
good at special teams. Coach, all three teams you've coached, you were at the head coaching level, in the NFL, have been very successful the last decade. We touched on the Chiefs, the Rams, obviously right now. I mean, the Rams are my Super Bowl favorite this season. I mean, they look great. Obviously, they won Super Bowl a couple years ago. And then, of course, the Eagles, Super Bowl champions last year, struggling a bit this year, but they're still in the conversation. What is your Sundays like in terms of your viewing loyalty? And of course, you have tons of your coaching tree, coaching other places. Do you follow all three teams the same? Is it Philly first? St. Louis, or I'm sorry, LA. How does that work for you?
Well, it's easier to follow the Eagles because I live here.
Mm,
So, our Sunday starts first if there's a European game. We start at 9 o'clock in the morning watching football. And then at one
yeah.
o'clock it becomes Philadelphia, okay, or who if Philadelphia is playing on Monday night or Sunday night, it's a different time. But if there's 4 games on, we watch 4 games. If there's only 3, we watch 3. And I sometimes move between games. I'll watch a
Mm,
half of one and a half another because I have friends involved, either former players that are coaching or former coaches that I work with coaching there. And I like to be aware of what's going on in their teams because I can then more intelligently visit with them when we visit.
mm.
So that's our routine. We open a bottle of Vermeil wine at probably 4 o'clock and sip on that until uh, Carol prepares dinner. But we TV trays and watch football. That's what we do on Sundays. That's what we will do today. And
Beautiful.
when the season's over, it's a boring weekend for me. And now Carol, she's a very good fan. I mean, she's been watching football all right. She'll sit in the other chair and say, "Why isn't that pass interference? That's pass interference. They should have called pass interference. What's he doing moving out there as a wide receiver before the snap? Right, there's nothing between the ball and him but air. How can he make a mistake? Yeah, I mean, he's right on top of it. She's a
Right.
semi coach at that time.
And are you so when it's not football season, are you baseball fan? Do you follow the Phillies? Are you basketball?
I know what's going on, but I'm not a follower. You
Yeah.
know, all the articles written about those games are too long for me. I can't hold, they don't hold my attention. My mind's
Right.
over here, my mind's over here, and that's one of my faults too, believe me. But I still follow auto racing because of my father.
Of
And,
course.
I follow the Indianapolis cars. I follow the sprint cars now, the Kubota series on Flow Racing, because
Mm,
Rico Abreu of St. Helena is a famous driver, won the championship this year. So I
yeah.
follow that every week. I know what's going on there. And sometimes I get to watch the races after the race because they're rebroadcast and these kinds of things. So I like that in my background. I restored 2 of my dad's old race cars. I have one of them
Mm,
right here in the garage, the original one that he had that ran up there in 1937 for 26. So
mm,
that's actually a bigger interest for me than baseball or basketball.
mm. And just a few more questions before we wrap up here, Coach. we see a lot of you talked about your time at CHS. You played everything. And I think for a lot of small school kids, that's more of a tradition. But in the last, 10, 15 years, we've seen a lot of specialization when in youth and high school sports, albeit maybe football, and women's soccer, it's a huge thing in a lot of sports. You see kids playing sports all year round, training for one sport all year round. Is a grandparent, as a parent, as a coach, what are your thoughts on that? Are you for specialization? Do you think it's detrimental? Do you think it's positive?
Well, there's something wrong. For example, Calistoga High School, we had 130 kids, and we have 25 guys on the football team playing 11-man football. Okay, my senior year, we lost one game. After that,
Right.
they were successful as well. Okay, now they have over 500 kids in the school, and they play 8-man football.
Yeah.
Okay, because
Yeah.
there's more sports. There's soccer and all this. They're not that they're not good sports, but
I was the last 11-man team my
yeah.
year. Last 11 man. Anyway, go continue,
So
sorry.
that's both disappointing to me, but yet understandable. It's
Yeah.
understandable. If a guy is truly a gifted player with talents that may mature to the point to get a scholarship, then your chances are you have to stick with it. You have to stick with it and keep improving your skills so that improves your opportunities for scholarship. But if not, if you're just a good athlete playing it out there, I think they ought to play in as many sports as they can because there's
Yeah.
an educational value to every team sport that you don't get in the classroom. No one's ever asked me what my grade point average was in high school, junior college, or sentence. No one's even asked me if I have a master's degree after winning a Super Bowl. Okay, and so many. I don't know. We just got to be careful of not overplaying the value of educational activities over the sports world because kids never forget the kids they lined up with, but they forget the kid they sat next to in chemistry. Okay. The,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
relationship building process in team sports is a lifelong positive experience that I,
Yeah.
I have on my phone. Okay. Right here. I could show you David Butler family, Calistoga. His grandfather was my first baseball coach. His dad and I played grammar school and high school sports together. We made friends all the way till he passed prematurely. Okay, that's Calistoga High School. Relationship. His son just won a championship game on the Moreau High School football field, which is named Al Vermeil Field. People forget that Al Vermeil has 6 world championship NBC rings and an NFL Super Bowl ring. The only guy in the world that has that. Okay, the only guy in the United States sports world that has 6 NBA World Championships ring and an NFL World Championship ring. No one has it, but he's another one that came out of that Calistoga High School. How about Merle Moore? Merle Moore coached number of years in the NFL, defensive coordinator, working with championship teams and all this kind of stuff. So there have been other people that came. The great baseball player kid, okay, I forget his name right now, came out of Calistoga High School.
Bob Nepper.
Bob Nepper, you bet. So anyway, I'm very fortunate for my experience. If I had to do it over again, I'd do it differently.
Yeah.
Okay, I would take academics much more seriously, and
Mm.
then I would have better prepared me for junior college, which would have better prepared me for San Jose State, which would have better prepared me for master's degree, which would carry over more deeply to the age I am right now at 89 years old. Don't pass up the opportunity to be a better student.
Well, and that pretty much covered that. I was going to ask you about advice you could partake, but you're still a coach at heart, so we got plenty of advice on that. I'll close with this, Coach. We do try to lean onto Bay Area subjects here, since I'm based in Northern California. If you could roughly give your top five, who would be your top five favorite Bay Area athletes, if you could just dish?
Athletes or person?
We can do both.
Okay, first Bill Walsh, personal friend. And partially responsible for me going back into coaching because he kept saying you got to get your butt back at coaching from him.
Mm,
Okay, I'd say Bill Walsh. I'd say John Ralston, Stanford University. Bill Wood,
mm,
Calistoga High School.
mm.
I think Jimmy Plunkett at Stanford, I was his coach, his first quarterback coach.
Wow.
Here, uh, Northern California. Paul Lathrop at Napa JC, Glenn DeBose at Napa JC, both positively influenced me to go to San Jose State. Glenn
Wow.
DeBose was an alum of San Jose State. He was the athletic director at Napa College, and he sent me as a walk-on to San Jose State. Okay, I don't know where I would have
Incredible.
gone without his direction. Okay, because they saw in me, they thought I could play at the next level, so they sent me there, and then I earned a scholarship my first spring practice there. And who was coaching there as a graduate assistant? Bill Walsh. So all
Oh,
those people, positive at Hillsdale High School, Bob Christopherson, Don Leidig, they were at the Hall of Fame 2 years ago. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. My all conference guard and captain and all conference running back that went to Stanford, ended up being the principal of the high school there.
Yeah.
All those kids, all those people, so positively influenced me, and
Yeah.
that I constantly, it's not that I don't forget them. I think about them all the time.
Hmm.
I have their pictures all around. Every time I'm a picture guy. Every time I walk in my office, I see somebody I really care about, and it makes me think about
Coach, and you, you've you graduated high school 1954. It's been a long time, and I'm just going to close with this. You know, you and Carol both, born and raised in Calistoga. You're still coming back at 89 years old. What keeps you coming back after all this time? And you've spent so much time in other places. What keeps you coming back?
it. I say this every time I drive into the Napa Valley. God, there's no place like home
Mm,
because I just feel so comfortable as a person.
mm,
It reminds me of all the great people I was exposed to in growing up. It makes you think more about how you were raised, the environment you were raised, and how little you had, but how much you had, in other
right.
in big values. Your character is a combination of many virtues. If I have good virtues, most of them were developed in Calistoga by the
Mm,
people in there, by my family, my grandparents. By help, I remember helping my grandfather make our wine. Okay, that's
mm,
what stimulated me to fool around with the wine world. The Frediani family, I got
mm,
Gene Frediani and Mrs. Frediani. They were like second parents to me. All these
mm,
people, you know. I'm still connected with the Lavisi family. Okay, Dude
mm,
Brown has passed away. His wife Mickey. Hey, we talked this week. Calistoga roots. They never leave you.
mm, mm. Amen. Amen, Coach. Well, Coach, I really
How
appreciate
about
the
your dad?
time.
How about your dad? Huh? I never went to
Mm,
Calistoga without spending at least an hour in that wine shop.
mm,
I sent, hey, the owners of NFL teams there to buy their wines. Okay. So,
yeah.
it's always a positive experience. And I would find out what to buy, what to taste from your dad, and when I go in, I talk to your mom. God bless them.
Mm. Well, wow, you're almost going to make me tear up. I appreciate that, and appreciate all your support, and just, as somebody who grew up in Calistoga, Coach, you know, it just, you mean a lot to a lot of people, and
Well, thank you.
it
Thank
really means a lot to talk to you. And I know you're a busy man, so I appreciate you taking the time. And we're gonna stop the recording. I'll see you here on the other side. But thank you so much, and hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
All
We'll
right.
do it again.
I love your mother. All right. Hey,
All right.
keep doing what you're doing, Jonathan. Take
Thank
care.
you, sir. And we'll
Bye.
keep the browser up. I'm gonna keep you on right here. 1 second.
Okay. I'm going to turn my computer.